Hello and welcome back to the Movie Clubhouse podcast. I'm your host Eddie, and today we have on the agenda Ahsoka Episode 5 After Talk. There is so much to say about this episode that we just got to watch, so without further ado, let's get into it. Just wow. We just saw Ahsoka Episode 5, which was roughly 50 minutes long. It's the perfect length for a Star Wars episode. We didn't end up feeling that we had scenes cut out at the end of this episode. 50 minutes is 45 to 50 minutes maybe are great length. Dave Filloni directed and written this episode. He is our guy. Dave Filloni is the one. He should helm the whole Star Wars universe. He knows what to do, how it should be done, and what to do next. This episode was phenomenal. Why? There is so much to say. Should we get into Jason has abilities, Ahsoka's new fashion change, or what happened in the world between worlds? Well, let's get into all of it. Firstly, the world between worlds. Ahsoka and Anakin get into a fight, a lightsaber fight which looks gorgeous. And that's not it. They fight for a while, but they end up in the Clone Wars. There is a Clone Wars flashback with the young Ahsoka and Anakin directly taken from the Clone Wars. They are in the battlefield fighting. That's the basics without getting into it in too much detail, but it looks so good. Young Ahsoka and young Anakin teaming up in live action. As so many other people we have seen today have said, we need a live action Clone Wars show with Ahsoka and Anakin. Because this literally gave us goosebumps. It looks so good. And this is not the end of it. They also get into a flashback later on in the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka is a bit... Or maybe it's not the Clone Wars, it's the Siege of Mandalore, as Ahsoka said. She's a little bit more grown up. She has blue lightsabers now instead of the one green that she had in the Clone Wars. And she's alone on the Siege of Mandalore, and Anakin comes to her in this ghost or spiritual form and says that he has not seen this battle because they had parted ways before that. And then and there they get into another lightsaber battle, and it's so fun to see. It's so cool. We also see a cameo from no one else than Captain Rex, played by, as the credits stated, Temuera Morrison. What a cool cameo. We don't get to see his face, but we get to see him in full commander outfit or clone outfit. So cool. The highlight, this episode is such a fan service episode. We can't deny that, but it's so cool. Is it the best Star Wars episode we have gotten to date? It's maybe not or is it? It's hard to say. We have not thought it through yet. It's definitely the best Star Wars episode when it comes to content. Is it the best story episode, a story driven thing? Maybe not. It's not. It's up there in the top 3 at least, maybe top 5. We have not thought it through yet, but it's, if you think just content, it's the most satisfying Star Wars episode we have gotten yet. It's so great. Some other points we want to touch on is that young Ahsoka, as we said, she looked so cool. She looked she was in her relevant outfit, as was Anakin for the Clone Wars. Her lines, we don't know what the actor or actress playing Ahsoka in her younger form is called yet, but in the way she gave her lines in the beginning felt a little bit off. Not a lot, but a little bit off. But later on, when she was more grown up in the second flashback, it felt a lot better. So we can't blame the actor for that. Just in the beginning it felt a little bit weird. But that's of course to be expected, because we have never seen a live-action Clone Wars flashback before. But Anakin tried to teach Ahsoka some important lesson here, and they get into a 3rd or 4th lightsaber battle back in the world between worlds. And Anakin kind of phases between the friendly Anakin and the Vader version. We see the Vader outfit appearing and his red lightsaber appearing in multiple instances, which is also incredibly cool and satisfying. So Ahsoka battled Anakin a 4th time or 3rd time maybe in the World Between Worlds again, where episode 4 ended. And we see Anakin using his red lightsaber and Ahsoka using her two. She's back in her grown-up form, so she uses her two white lightsabers. Anakin is trying to finish her training, he says. But Ahsoka doesn't really understand. And we as a viewer, and I don't really understand either, because Ahsoka beats Anakin at the place in the World Between Worlds. She chooses to live, basically. Anakin gives her a decision, die or live. And that should be a pretty easy decision, I guess. But in the end, she chooses to live when she defeats Anakin and puts the lightsaber up to his throat, basically. She doesn't kill him, of course, even though he may be a Force ghost, but she throws away the lightsaber. And then Anakin slowly fades from his raged self to his more calm face. And then he says something like, "There is still hope for you," or yeah, something like that. So I don't really get the lesson that Anakin gets to learn her now. What is the lesson? She chooses to live, basically. But that's why we don't really get that. That's a little bit confusing. We need to think a bit more about it. We may get back to it. But that's all that happens in the beginning of the episode. But that's just the beginning, or the first half of the episode. The second half is a lot more contentful. Or not more contentful, but there's a lot more happening also. Hera Syndulla and Carson Teva and Jason, among others, are searching for Ahsoka and Sabine at the second half of the episode. And they, thanks to Jason, which seems to have abilities now, can sense that there is something in the water. He can hear the lightsaber battle between Anakin and Ahsoka in the water. So there is going out with a rescue party to search for Ahsoka in the water, basically, and then they later find her. And she, of course, has survived because Anakin got to teach her this final lesson. So Ahsoka survives. Jason has abilities, which is pretty cool. He can sense something in the Force or the World Between Worlds. But Hera Syndulla and Carson Teva and the squadron of pilots they have with them seems to get a problem at the end of the episode because this is an unauthorized mission they are on. But however, when Ahsoka, we also need to mention this, when Ahsoka comes back out from the ship when she has been resting for a while, she has a new change in fashion. She is now basically white clothed. She is Ahsoka the White in some way or form. We see her wearing even more white towards the end of the episode, when there is another big thing happening. They are going to travel with these space whales, or purgles, I think they are called, through another galaxy. So Ahsoka, in her white outfit, talks to one of these space whales, and they basically fly into its mouth, and then they are hyper jumping, or what is called, going into hyperspace with the whales, or inside one of the whale, and they are going to find Sabine, and most likely Thrawn also. And for all we know, Ezra is also there. And that we will be seeing in the next episode, which is episode 6. So that's the basics, all the big things that happened in the episode. It was so contentful, and it's some of the best Star Wars we have seen. We really want to highlight some of the aspects we have talking about. To start with, the flashbacks to the Clone Wars and Ahsoka's earlier life were so cool. We love young Ahsoka. She's so cool. Even though her lines were a bit off at the beginning, we felt like it. But it was so cool seeing it. And Anakin, or Hayden Christensen, back as Anakin. For most of the flashbacks, friendly Anakin, or the nice version of Anakin. He was Vader form also for some of the scenes, or he flashed between them to showcase that he also became Vader, and he has this part of him that is a little bit enraged, if you would call it like that. Because this was at least so cool, seeing them back in the Clone Wars. All the surroundings and all the all the clones running and dying, and that sounds pretty awful, but dying, and all the machinery and the robots and the heavy tanks marching forward, and the lightsaber is not. They fought a lot in this episode, lightsaber, but just them taking out their lightsaber and deflecting some of the shots that gets flown towards them. That's just so cool to see. And seeing Ahsoka go from green lightsaber and to a little bit more grown up with the blue ones later on at the Siege of Mandalore is also so cool. And finally seeing Anakin getting to learn Ahsoka this final lesson, which has something to do with choosing to live or die, or die or live. And Ahsoka choosing to, of course, then live, and she may need to do some things that she may not want to do, if you would put it like that. I don't know if there is anything we have missed. They fought a lot in the first sequence of the first half of the episode, and it was so cool seeing Anakin back, and just them talking to each other was so satisfying. It literally gave us goosebumps. And through the other half of the episode, it was a little bit more sad. For example, there's one scene with Hugh Yang standing at the edge where Ahsoka fall off in the episode 5 or 4, and holding Sabine's helmet and like saying something like, "I told them to stay together, but they never did." That was a bit sad moment, actually. But it also feels like Hera Syndulla's son, or what's he called? Whatever. It seems like he will become a Jedi at some point. He gets some abilities, or he has some abilities of some form. And he seems like he wants to become a Jedi, because he asks Hugh Yang in a later part of the episode if he can teach him how to build a lightsaber, or teach him how to fight, basically. So that's an interesting part of the episode, because it seems like this boy will become something bigger towards the end of the episode, because his father also was a Jedi. So Ahsoka now comes back, and she seems a lot more. She's basically Ahsoka the Wise. She seems a lot more wise, and like she knows a lot more about life, basically. That's to put it lightly. She knows a lot more now. And that will be interesting to see going forward in episode 6, 7 and 8. Because we have 3 episodes left, so it's a lot more still to come. The only thing we felt was missing from this episode was maybe a Tron appearance at the end, maybe? Or maybe Ezra or Sabine, seeing them in this new galaxy or other place. But that maybe would have been too much content for even this one Star Wars episode. But we felt we have covered the basics of the episode, or the most important aspects of it. Some of our highlights were definitely the flashbacks from the Clone Wars with Anakin and Ahsoka. They were so cool, and the later flashbacks also, and just Ahsoka and Anakin interacting with each other. Jason having abilities seems to be a cool aspect also going forward. And finally, Ahsoka's fashion change, going from grey to white. She seems a lot more complex now, and a lot more knowing. This will be interesting seeing her going forward. So this was a phenomenal Star Wars episode, probably one of the best ones released this far. Of course, some of the later episodes, 7, 8 and 6, 7 and 8, may be better, we don't know yet. But as our expectations before this episode, we are definitely satisfied with it. It was so cool. We praise Dave Filloni, he is our man, our guy, our king. So that was all for this after talk of Ahsoka episode 5. If you like our podcast, be sure to turn on notifications, or maybe leave a review if you like what you hear, because that would support us tremendously. We will be so happy. Going forward, we will have our One Piece review coming soon, so you need to stick out for that. It comes out in a few days after this episode. And we also have a review for The Nun and The Whale, a double featurette. That will be extremely cool. It also comes out in a few days' time.